Welcome back to the channel, everybody. If you work on an online business, you know there are two ways to grow your audience. The first is by purchasing new installs, and the second is by reactivating lapsed customers. So in my experience, it's much better to try to reactivate churned or lapsed customers before spending money to acquire new customers. So in today's MySQL tutorial, I'm going to show you how to recreate the analysis behind me, which shows you a count of 30-day churn players per day for this online demo business, along with the cumulative count of churned players. So this is super important because when you're trying to answer or address that question, you need to leverage your database and see how many churned players you have. So in the business behind me, this business has been live for 2 years, and we have about 90,000 churned customers or churned players that we can retarget. So it's better to do that rather than spend a bunch of money to acquire new installs. So let's move over to MySQL and I'll show you how to recreate this exact same analysis. So we're going to start with a table of dates. Let me show you what this table looks like. Here we go. So we just have a column here called date with a column of dates. The very first date is September 22nd, 2022, when this business or product went live. So again, this online business has been live for about 2 years, and what we're gonna try to see is just a count of churn players per day, but most importantly, a cumulative count of churn players up through the present moment, so that we can see, okay, how many churn players can we retarget? And again, this is much more economical than going out and buying new installs. We're going to call this table dates. And really all we need to do is go to our table of customer logins. It's called fact player logins. And what we're going to do here is for each customer, let's get their most recent login date. So we'll do login date max. Call this max login date. Make sure to do a group by. This is an aggregate function. I will show you this worked. Here we go. We have the max or most recent or last login date per customer. Great. So now I'm going to show you exactly what we are going to do. So we have this table of dates, right? And for each date, we want to count the number of customers that became 30-day churned on this date. And then in addition to that, we want a cumulative column, or we want a count of total customers that are 30 or more days away from their last login date from this date right here. So the first column is pretty simple. It's just going to be a count of players that became 30-day churned on each one of these dates. And then our second column will be a cumulative column, which counts the total number of players who had a last login date that was 30 or greater days from this date. And that'll be a cumulative column, right? So that when we create the chart, we can see, oh wow, this demo business right here has 90,000 customers that we can retarget that are 30 or more days from their last login date. So let's do that now in a join, and then we'll just have 3 total columns, and then 2 columns will be calculated. So we want to keep this date column. We want to do a left join over to this table of logins, which is the max login date for each customer. You can call this logins. And we're going to do something interesting here. So most people are used to doing joins and joining fields from table 1 to fields from table 2. We're going to reference fields from table 1 and 2, but we are going to do it in a date diff function. So we'll do date diff. So the difference in days between the date in table 1 and the max login date in table 2 has to be greater than or equal to 30 days, right? And if we simply do a count, this is going to be our cumulative field, right? So the number of customers with a login date that's greater than or equal to this date value, going through all of these date values. We will call this cumulative churned players. However, we also want to know how many players became 30-day churned on this specific date. So that's going to be the equal part to the greater than or equal to. So we can do this. Okay, and this is actually great for auditing. So whenever you want to calculate something cumulatively, also do it daily or by the date interval so that you can add it up and compare it to the cumulative value to make sure that everything is correct. Let's do a group by here. Okay, and let's run our query. Okay, everybody, so here is our data, and you'll notice something pretty curious here. We're getting a ton of zeros, at least in our starting dates. So again, this online business launched in September of 2022, and you can see that the first 30 dates have zeros. And the reason why is because we defined a churned customer as someone who has 30 or more days from their last login date. So of course, for the first 30 days of product launch, we're not going to have any churned players. So we start getting churned players October 22nd, 2022, right? Exactly 30 days later. So if you want, what I would recommend is you can put something in your having clause. So again, this is a SQL clause right after your group by, and say having churned players greater than 0, and that'll eliminate these records with zeros here, which is fine. So let's take this data over to Excel. Okay, so for this tutorial I kept the zeros, but anyway, here we have our churned players and our cumulative churned players. And again, it's nice to have this column in B because it allows you to audit column C, right? So If we look at those 3 records right there, the summation of that is 246, which matches the cumulative value here in column C. So this means our cumulative calculation is indeed correct. Okay, so let's recreate that analysis right here. Okay, we'll make the cumulative churn players an area chart, and then just the churn players a line graph right there. Okay, fantastic. Here's our analysis. So as you can see here in the blue, we have a count of 30-day churn players per day or daily. You can see that the app on average loses about 100 to 150 players per day. They go dormant, they go inactive. But I think the most compelling thing is over the course of 2 years, how many total or cumulative inactive, lapsed, or churn customers do you have that you can reach out to or retarget in some sort of outbound marketing campaign? And for this demo business, it's an overwhelming 90,000 inactive customers in their database that they can leverage today. So again, I think this is a very useful path to grow your audience rather than going out and having to spend a lot of money trying to buy new installs, with many of those new installs actually part of your churned audience right here. So again, this is a really great way to solve a problem with something existing without having to commit more resources or monetary resources to acquiring brand new customers. If you like this content, please continue to like and subscribe. Thank you very much.